Hello everybody and welcome back to the Blue Snot channel. Today I am back with another video as I will be doing a Western Conference prediction video. Yesterday I did the Eastern Conference, and I'll leave a link in the description below to that video. But before I start, I just want to quickly talk about yesterday's video, and I just want to say that there was a couple of problems with yesterday's video. Two main problems. One, the video was just way too long. It was 38 minutes long, and that's just way too long for a prediction video. And the second thing is that it turns out me kind of rushing the setup that I did yesterday caused the quality of the video to be very smudgy and very just poor. So it kind of explained why I didn't get a lot of viewership in that video. I only got like 20 views in that video as of now, and I thought I would have got maybe like 50 or 60. So because of that, in this video I decided to do a shorter version of it. I'll make it shorter. I'll try to make sure it's not more than 30 minutes, and I'll also have set up this perfectly today. I actually took time to set it up for this video, and yeah, hopefully this one will be a little bit better. But let's obviously get started. We got 12 teams in the Western Conference, which means that, you know, like the old MLS format, we actually have half of the team that will make the playoffs and half of the team that will not make the playoffs. I mean, that's how it works until it kind of got a little bit messed up a couple of years ago when MLS added an extra spot and there was like some uneven how more than half of the playoff team or more than half of the team in the conference make it into the playoffs, and hence that's why my Quakes actually got that kind of benefit, because in any other years, if this was the format in any other years, they would not have made it the playoffs. But either way, we're going to start with number 12, and we're going to start in the bottom and once again finish in the wooden spoon of this year Western Conference is going to be the Colorado Rapids. And I say that once again they're going to finish in the wooden spoon because this is exactly where they were last season. Well, actually, to be fair, they actually finished 10th place. I forgot that the Galaxy actually finished with the wooden spoon. But, you know, for the Rapids, you know, I get that they definitely made a couple of moves during the offseason, and they got a new manager called Anthony Hutchinson. But these moves that they made during the offseason are not big name moves, and you know, I still think that this Rapids team has a long way to go in terms of competing again. I mean, I think the only reason why I will say that the Rapids might be competing this year is that if they can do what they did in 2016, which is just play lockdown defense, just score enough goals, and somehow surprise everyone in the league. Other than that, I just don't see how the Rapids is going to get out of the basement again. I think this is going to be another painful year for Rapids fans to endure, and you know, I think they probably just should start a rebuilding process of bringing some young talent and see how it works right now, because right now it's not looking good for the Rapids coming in to the new season. Either way, finished second to last in this year's Western Conference is a team that also were near the bottom of the table, and it's going to be Minnesota. And actually, I spelled Minnesota wrong there. The O should have been here and the T should be here, but whatever. But yeah, Minnesota is going to be finished near the bottom again, and this shouldn't come with no surprise because they didn't really do much in this offseason, and even the GM of their team even said that they are not going to do much. They're not going to make those big moves that a lot of the MLS team has already made. And if you're a Minnesota fan and hearing that, that must be frustrate you to hell. I mean, that having a GM says that they're not going to invest the team and bring in some new players to improve the team, I mean, it's frustrating. And I think that for Minnesota, they're still one of those teams that just wants to be in the MLS, but they don't kind of want to like compete just in a bit. They're kind of like what the Union was a couple of years ago when Philadelphia didn't really bring in some big names player and just want to be there. And look what happened to the Union now. They still have problem to try to compete in the league, and I'm just worried that that's going to happen to Minnesota too. Minnesota, as long as they don't start to really get those big names and really kind of invest in, this could be a big problem for them going to long term. And I know they still do have talent on their team. Obviously, they have their goal scorer Christian Ramirez, and they also have Sam Cronin in the midfield, and they also have a very good coach of Adrian Heath. But still, I think this team is there's just so much problem with this team, with the way that a lot of these players are still kind of like NASL, kind of like D2 kind of players. I don't think they're up to the standard of MLS yet, so that's why I'm gonna say they're gonna finish near the bottom once again. Next up, finishing in 10th place, and this might be a bit of a surprise for some, but I'm gonna explain why I put them that low, is the Vancouver Whitecaps. Now, the Whitecaps last season actually was in the playoffs. They actually finished 3rd place, and they were actually on verge of actually finish top in the Western Conference if they didn't just kind of like messed up in the last couple of weeks by not getting any good result and kind of knocked them down to 3rd place. And the reason why I put the Whitecaps this low is because teams are going to figure out their counter-attacking kind of thing that they've been doing last season. I mean, the counter-attacking kind of tactics that the Vancouver Whitecaps been using is the only reason why they look legitimately good. I mean, I know a couple of Whitecaps fan was kind of not happy that the media were not giving them respect. Well, yeah, because you were playing a lot of counter-attacking kind of tactics. And there was also some games that you could have easily lost. So, I think for the Whitecaps, teams will definitely figure out that tactics that they've been just using throughout the year. And without that counter-attacking tactics that the Whitecaps had, they look completely lost. They just does not have a plan B after that kind of tactics, and I just have a feeling that unless they don't find a plan B in terms of trying to find a way to not always use the counter-attacking and not always just hit teams on the break and instead just try to break teams down, which they struggled a lot last season, they are going to finish in the 10th place. And also, it doesn't help the fact that you lost your starting goalkeeper and also lost your main striker, Freddie Montero, to Sporting Lisbon. So, yeah. So, they, of course, will be finishing 10th, and in 9th place is another team that made it to the playoffs last season and kind of surprised a lot of people, but I really think this team is going to regress like the Whitecaps. It's Houston. Houston last season finished 5th. They made it all the way to the conference semifinal, and I think the only reason why they made it that far into the playoffs was because they were on a very hot streak near the end of the year. I mean, that hot streak that they were in near the end of the year was the reason that gave all that momentum to them and just pushed them all the way to the semifinal. But I just feel like for Houston, this is going to be a regress here. I think it's going to be really tough to do what they just did last season. I mean, last season, not a lot of people believed Houston was going to be a contender, and it turns out they kind of surprised a lot of people, and a lot has to do with some of their very good going forward. They have a lot of very speedy players, and they still have a lot of speedy player on their team. Guys like Albert Elise and Kyoto in the wing, those speeds, they're Honduran in the wide area is going to always trouble any team. But for Houston to do it for the second year in a row is going to be really tough. But they can, of course, prove me wrong again. I mean, certainly they have the manager to do it. Wilmer Cabrera is one of the best in terms of getting the best out of their players, and he can potentially surprise everybody again, and that Houston can be back in the playoffs, even though, once again, I ranked them very low in the standings. But moving on, the next team that is going to be finished 8th, and this, I'm going to get heat for this, and I already know it. I'm going to get so much heat for putting this team where they are right now. and that, of course, is the Galaxy. I mean, I can even hear the comment section and hear Galaxy fans just literally rip me to shit for putting them so low in the table, and that a lot of media has been saying that they're going to make the playoffs. Well, the reason why I think they're going to finish so low this season is that they have no chemistry. They have literally no chemistry on their team. The team that they have, the moves that they made in the offseason sounds very kind of sexy, but at the end of the day, as long as they do not have chemistry, and that kind of is going to kind of linger to them throughout the season, the Galaxy ain't going anywhere. They're not going to get back to the playoffs. Now, if they can get that chemistry kind of sorts out, if Sigi Schmidt can somehow sort it out to make sure everybody on their team play kind of like a team, and if the Dos Santos brother can have a kind of breakout year and should be playing to their potential, unlike last year, then I really think that the Galaxy would be in the playoffs. But for now, I don't trust this Galaxy team in terms of all the moves that they made. I don't believe all the moves that they made is just a way to say that they're all the way back into the top four. And some people will say that, well, Orlando did the same thing, and you put them so high up in the table. Why is that? Why don't you do it for the Galaxy? Well, the reason why I say Orlando moves into the playoffs with all those big moves is because those big moves that they made are players that are really, really good, and they have been proven a lot. And for the Galaxy, even though they sign a lot of move and just kind of like completely make a change in the back line and the midfield and stuff like that, some of those players are sort of unproven. So for me, I think that's the difference between me yesterday putting Orlando having just a complete makeover in the offseason in the playoffs, and the Galaxy just having a complete makeover in the offseason but not putting them in the playoff spot. Speaking of LA, the other LA team is going to be not make the playoffs, and it's hard to believe that I actually have the guts to put both LA team below the red line, but that's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to put LAFC there, and I think this one is more justified, mainly because LAFC, the hype that is surrounded this team is certainly real, but I feel like people are just caught in the hype, but didn't really realize the big picture of LAFC and how there is definitely issue for LAFC. I mean, they got a lot of these players coming in. They obviously got that superstar Carlos Vela, pretty much the main man of LAFC. And then of course they got Diego Rossi, Omar Grabert, and all the other players coming in. And they also mix up with a couple of MLS veteran like Beitashour, Maller, and also who else? Feilhaber in their team. But still, at the end of the day, the reason why I don't think they're gonna be as successful is that there's a couple of things. One, expansion team usually tends to not make the playoffs in their first season. I mean, unless your name is Seattle and Atlanta, and I really think that with the squad that LAFC had right now, they don't look like an Atlanta team from last season. The difference between Atlanta with their first season to the LAFC from this season is that Atlanta would prepare for it. They had depth in their squad. They definitely have some proven player like Joseph Martinez and Miguel Almiron there. This LAFC team coming in, they have Carlos Vela that could potentially be the next the next Sebastian Javenko of the league, but other than that, who else is with him that is going to be right up with that level of his right up to the level of his playing style? And the answer is I don't know. There's just so many unproven player right now with LAFC right now that it's still a big question of whether or not are they going to actually make the playoffs in the first season or not. And the other thing that I will say about LAFC and why they're not going to make the playoffs is that if they have one player injured on their team, if Vela goes down and maybe a couple of other players goes down, then they are screwed, because this team has zero depth at all. And if there is a team in the MLS that had absolutely no depth, it's this team, because they only have 18 players coming in to the new season. I mean, 18 players. That is really low, and I think they're not even at the minimum requirement for a team to have, like, I think it was like 24 players is the minimum requirement. I'm not quite sure, but for me, LAFC is just not there yet. I think they'll probably will be there next season if the players will be prove that they can actually really step up. But as of now, I just don't see it, because I'm just worried that if they have injury to their squad, then it's going to really kind of hold them back. And also those unproven player on their team, you know, unless they prove everybody wrong that they can actually perform, I just don't believe the fact that they're ready for this, and they're probably just going to miss the playoffs for that. But either way, now moving on to the teams that will make the playoffs this season above the red line. And the first team that I think will make the playoffs and just barely makes the playoffs is FC Dallas. Now, obviously, FC Dallas certainly will look at this year as a year of redemption. And certainly this is a year that Oscar Pereira has to prove to people that they are completely over with that collapse that they had last season, and that they have forgot about it, and that they're now back to trying to be one of the best team in the Western Conference. And for me, I'm only putting them right here and not like right around here, mainly because I don't know if this team has kind of recovered from this collapse right now. I mean, that collapse that they had last season was just so historic and so embarrassing that it's really hard to recover from that. And for Dallas, they still have a lot of those young talented guys on their team, guys like Urruti, Mauro Diaz, and also Kellen Acosta still on their team. But still, you know, I don't know. I don't think Dallas is going to be as good as they once were. And the other thing is, speaking of Kellen Acosta, he will be out for the first 6 to 8 weeks. And that is a huge blow to Dallas, mainly because Kellen Acosta is the absolute rock and engine of that Dallas team. And to miss him for that amount of time to start the season, yeah, I just have a feeling maybe Dallas is going to get off to a bit of a rough start, because they might still have that kind of nightmare of a season that they had last season. And maybe eventually when they get back to full strength, then they'll start make some ground. But for now, I'm just going to put them in 6th place. But yeah, next up, finishing in 5th, and it is going to be my team, the San Jose Earthquakes. If you wonder where exactly my team is going to finish, I put them in 5th this season. And I'm not sure if I said it in my Quakes season preview, which if you guys haven't watched that, make sure you guys go ahead and check that out. But I'm putting them in 5th right now, mainly because I think this team definitely has the talent to go on into the playoffs again. And obviously we made so many additions. We basically completely got rid of all the dead weight that is from the old regime and put in some new players. And those new players include Eriksson, Quintana, and also Joel Kreberg in the team. But still, I think that for me, I'm only putting them in 5th, mainly because there's still a lot of question with this team. And one of the question is, how are this new kind of approach, and also we got a new manager too coming into this season. So the question is, how is Mikael Starhay gonna try to use kind of his way to try to make sure that everybody on the team will play well? How is his system that he's going to implement this season gonna work for the Quakes? And it could work in a very nice way, or it could work in a very disastrous way. So, I think maybe putting them in 5th is sort of kind, because there's just so much unknown with this team. They could easily, I think the Quakes, if they get this right this season, they can definitely finish in the top 4, but if they get it wrong, then they can finish in the bottom of the table. So, time will tell to see if the Quakes will get this right, and I'm praying they will, because everybody know that I'm a Quakes fan, and I really want this rebuilding process that we're going right now for the second year to get it right and get ourselves competing with those big boys in the Western Conference. But either way, next team that is going to be finished in 4th place is going to be RSL. Now, I know some people will say that I put RSL way too high because, last season they didn't even make the playoffs. Why in the world do you put them just so high right now? Well, the reason why I put them so high right now is that I have a feeling that momentum that they carry right near the end of the season, where they just barely missed the playoffs with all those kind of wins, and how ever since Mike Pecky took over RSL, he has completely revolutionized that team. Well, I have a feeling it's going to carry over. I mean, this team has just so much weapon going forward. They have a lot of young kind of players, guys like Jefferson Severino, Albert Rusnak, Justin Glad, and who else? Oh god, I forgot who was the other name, but they have a lot of young talent on this team, and this team is just going to get better and better as the year goes on. And like I said, I feel like they're going to carry that momentum heading into this year, and if they can do that, they can definitely finish in the top 4. Heck, I think they might even finish in the top 3. That's how optimistic that I am with this team. This is a very young and dangerous team, and it's also managed by a very young kind of manager that know what he's doing. So yeah, I think RSL is going to be very good this season, and yeah, I have a feeling that they might even finish higher than 4th place. But yeah, either way, now moving on to the top 3, and the team that I think is going to finish in 3rd is going to be Portland. It's going to be the Timbers. Now, the Timbers surprisingly got rid of Caleb Porter last year, and they replaced him with Giovanni Savarese, who used to manage the Cosmos. And this is a pretty interesting time for Portland because they have a new manager now, and I'm pretty sure Savarese playing style or his kind of philosophy is a little bit different than what Caleb Porter is when he was managing the Timbers. And they also started getting a little bit younger now. I mean, I know that they got Andy Polo in the off season. He's one of those South American kind of young import that is just taking over the MLS right now. And they also got a couple of other young guys on their team. Basically, they're trying to freshen up their core. I mean, the core that they've been having for the last couple of years is started to get old, and they are trying to find a way that Diego Valeri just doesn't have to always just carry the team. I mean, it was pretty clear that Valeri was just carrying this team last season. He was doing everything and every way to try to get this team into the playoffs, and hence that's why he of course won the MVP. So they're definitely trying to do something to just kind of get that kind of pressure off of Valeri in terms of him always being the main man and always trying to put his team on the back a little bit off. And I think Portland could finish in the top 3. I think Portland could definitely have a chance to compete in the Western Conference. I know they have a new manager, and I know the Timbers usually are, I don't know if this is true, but they tend to always kind of a very inconsistent team at time, where one year they can finish all the way into the top 3, and then the next they will drop all the way down and miss the playoffs. And I remember a couple of years ago when they won the MLS Cup, and then the very next year they missed the playoffs. And this might be a situation again, because last year they were very good, and now that they have a new manager and just potentially a new playing style, everybody's going to point that Portland's not going to do very well. But I kind of disagree. I think Portland is just going to be as good as they were last year, and they are finding a way, like I said, to trying to put the pressure off of Valeri in terms of just carrying the team. But either way, Portland, of course, will be finished third. Finishing second is going to be Sporting KC, finishing in second place. Sporting KC, this team has been consistently making the playoffs for the last couple of years, but the problem for them is that when they're in the playoffs, they tends to really screw it up, and they are pretty much like the Washington Capitals of the Western Conference, because every time they have a good season and they come into the playoffs, they completely just bottled it away. And it was once again the case last season when they of course, well, last season they were having a very bad run in the latter part of the season, and one thing that you just do not want if you're already kind of confirmed to be in the playoffs is that you do not want a bad run, and they had that kind of bad run last season. And once they play against Houston in the knockout stage, they basically just lost and they gone out of the playoffs, and that obviously is definitely going to be that was probably very infuriating for Sporting KC fans, because they want to see the team kind of successful and want to get it to the next stage. And this offseason they made a couple of moves. Obviously, one of the big move they made was getting Gutierrez, and I forgot where they actually got him from, but he of course is a DP, and he's going to be a very kind of solid DP in the midfield area. They added a couple more players in the attacking end, and we obviously know Sporting KC has a rock solid defense. This is the best defensive team in the league last season, and I think they're going to be once again this season. The only issue I think with Sporting KC is that can they find a striker that will, a kind of a striker like what Dom Dwyer used to have, because I think they still haven't quite found a replacement for Dom Dwyer ever since he left Orlando last season. So, it's going to be interesting to see how it is, and it's going to be interesting to see how Peter Vermees will try to once again go with a very kind of defensive approach, and hopefully somehow they will just have enough in their defense and just have enough, well, not enough in the defense, but just enough on the attack to potentially finish second in the league. But yeah, finishing in the top position this year, and this was a team that made it to the MLS Cup but unfortunately lost, is going to be the Seattle Sounders. The Seattle Sounders, I think they're going to finish top. And obviously, if you guys don't know, a couple of days ago, they just announced that Jordan Morris is out of the season after he torn an ACL. And certainly my thoughts and prayer is to him, and I really wish him a speedy recovery, because, this sucks for him. He is a player that, going back to his rookie season, he had an absolute breakout rookie season. And then last year, he suffered a lot of injuries. And I really thought that this year was his comeback year. And this is the year that he was going to rediscover that rookie kind of season that he had. But unfortunately, that won't be the case. And, like I said, I wish him a very speedy recovery. But as for Seattle, I think they'll just do well without him. I mean, they did it last season and they were pretty good. It is still a little bit of a setback for them, but still, I think they should still have enough. I think Clint Dempsey should still probably have another year or two left in his leg before he starts to fall off in his career. And Seattle still have their core intact, even though it is started to getting kind of the time where that core just gets way too old. So for me, Seattle is going to finish first. And yeah, that of course is my Western Conference prediction. And if I look at this Western Conference and overall in terms of these prediction, it's really kind of hard to predict the Western Conference. I think the reason why it's very hard is because these teams right here, from 1st to 10th, these teams can easily make a case of them getting into the playoffs and potentially getting high up the playoffs. I mean, the West is not like the East, where in the Eastern Conference there's like 3 teams that we know for sure is going to finish in the top 3, and we know that there obviously is a standout team. In the West, there isn't. Even I put Seattle on the top, they still have some issue that they have to deal with, and that can be said with all these other teams in the playoffs. So I expect the West to be very unpredictable and very wild like it was last season. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Make sure you guys let me know in the comments below, what do you think of the Western Conference? Where do you think your team is going to finish this season? And yeah, I, of course, will see you guys next time.